Good evening and welcome to our third of quarterly meetings as an update on the strategic plan here in Long Hill Township. I'm going to share my screen, and I also emailed the slide deck to you if that's easier for you to view than watching the computer as well. So it's a pleasure to have everybody here tonight on this beautiful weather day, although like March, we never know what's coming our way. Just to review the agenda for this evening, I'm going to speak briefly about the CUSAC monitoring process, compare a district demographic study that was conducted in 2018 with our current enrollment data. Discuss also how that enrollment data is affecting our pre-K and the potential of a preschool expansion program, which is going to be simply a topic of discussion for this evening. Then we have 4 areas within our strategic plan: learning in our community, our facilities and finance, and importantly, the culture and climate of our schools. So we'll spend some time talking about each of those. If anything you want to discuss is not covered in our agenda this evening, we will have some items for a good of the order where you can ask questions or contribute any comments on any of the topics on the agenda or otherwise. So every number of years, the New Jersey Department of Education does go through the process of CUSAC monitoring. And CUSAC monitoring stands for the Quality Continuum of Public Education. And there are a number of different areas: facilities, finance, of course, instruction and program related to our curriculum, and personnel management and the governance of the board. I'm happy to report that we had the Executive County Superintendent of Schools for Morris with us earlier in the week. And we went through an audit of our personnel files, which basically entails the county superintendent selecting at random some employees and asking to review pieces of look at their personnel file, make sure that their evaluations are conducted, that all of the materials that are needed to be sure that our employees are safe to be in schools have completed all of their training. We passed everything with flying colors related to personnel. And in fact, Dr. Purnell, who is our Executive County Superintendent, pointed out that our personnel files and records and the maintenance of those in the main board offices here were exceptionally well done and really an exemplar. We'll continue through the process with some additional monitoring from the business administrator. And as I said, every district in the state of New Jersey goes through this every few years. It's been a wonderful opportunity to really dig into some very fine detail about the operations and procedures here in Long Hill, which are exceptionally well executed, and we've done very well in that area. So it's a thorough process. And if you're interested in any of the details on the particulars of the areas that they evaluate, I'm happy to share more about that. But it ranges from everything on the financial end to your audit to the curriculum side, where they'll look specifically at each of the curriculum, how we make them available, and then to items related to how we care for the students that are in our district, the counseling services that we offer, the plans we have in place to support students in need academically, socially, and emotionally. And then also what we're providing for our staff in terms of professional development and making sure that as they continue to hone their craft as educators, they're well supported. So that was some happy news this week, although not unexpected, considering the quality of professionals we have here in our district. So next, we're going to take a look back to 2018. If you look on our website, you'll see the full, I think it's about 30 odd pages or so, demographic study, but I chose pieces from the demographic study to share with you. So it was in 2018, the predictions for our enrollment, that as a district, we would be at about 1,007 students. And currently, we're projecting for next school year that we'll have 850 students. So you can see that the demographic projections were quite a bit off. And on these numbers, that's a significant deviation. I also broke it down by school, predictably, because they were able to work with the central population in actual numbers. A number of years ago, these students were in our district, and we simply just started determining, okay, well, when these students are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, what will Central Middle School look like in terms of population? So the projections for Central were pretty much consistent with where we are. And then when the less predictable numbers were there, you see that the disparity and the error in the demographic study was greater. Almost 100 students off in Millington School. And then in Gillette School, which is a 53 student difference on just, between 200 and 300 on those numbers. So we know that these demographic studies, and most public schools use the same type of demographic studies and the same demographic groups. They're difficult to predict out 10 years, but even on 5 years, there can be some changes. So you can see where we are. I took the chart from the demographic study. This is what they projected for each of the 5 years. And then the green numbers on 21, 22, and 22, 23 these are our actual numbers in this school year. We're at 842, predicted was 951. And then it's still a projection for 22, 23. In my career, I remember one year I was a high school principal and I had 32 families that had freshman students, 32 new freshmen come in a period of 2 weeks in the summer. These anomalies can happen, but we do feel like these numbers are fairly accurate and will be up a handful of students next year. I'm unsure as to why, when this demographic study was conducted, they separated out special education students. So I did not do that here. So all of our students are simply indicated in the grade level that they're in. So you can see our 6th grade was projected to be 100 students next year, and the largest of the 3 grades in the middle school. The other difference that you'll notice is what I wanted to focus on this evening, which is preschool. So in the one area where the pre-kindergarten grade projections were actually off was that we anticipate many more pre-K students next year than even the demographic study indicated, with 39 students projected in pre-K and currently 37. So we run a pre-K 3 program, a pre-K 4 program, and our SKIP program, which is a combination of students who are placed in the program with IEPs and differing multi-grade or age needs within those classes. So the question that I'd like to pose to you and talk a little bit about, and when we break here for some discussion, you can comment on the demographic study. I can answer any questions that you would like, but I'd like to think about the concept of the benefits and challenges of exploring preschool expansion. And that happens in 2 particular ways. So the first is that New Jersey has advocated and put across in the Department of Education budget some increased funding for districts that are eligible to apply for preschool expansion. So there's the concept that not only should we have universal kindergarten, but we should have universal pre-K as well. And that public school districts should help take the initiative for educating 3- and 4-year-olds. Typically, New Jersey public education is from 5 to 21 if students are eligible for education through an IEP to the age of 21. That's the public schools area of responsibility. So one way that we could look at preschool expansion is to discuss the concept of would it be in our interest as a district to apply for the preschool expansion grant money and grow our preschool program? That can be done in one of two ways. We could increase the classes here at Gillette School, but the more sustainable and practical model is to partner with community preschools and expand our program in that way. So there might be a Montessori school, a learning experience, and we would work with the coordinators of those early childhood programs to have them enact the same curriculum that we have here in the public school, and to reserve some spaces for Long Hill Township residents in those preschools. But the program would be administered jointly by the community partner and the Long Hill Township Board of Education. Here at Gillette this year, we are a little bit crowded, and looking at our pre-registration numbers for pre-K for next year, we have accepted all of the students that are applied as pre-K 3, and all of the students who applied for pre-K 4 who are with us now as 3-year-olds. So the concept being that if you had a preschooler who was 3 years old, you would be able to continue with the program. We have a waiting list for pre-K 4, which would require us to open up an additional section of preschool. Now, right now, we're informing those parents that they're on a waiting list, while as a district, we discussed the idea of what might be the implications of opening that additional preschool classroom. Might it necessitate a change in the way the classrooms are set up here at Gillette? Might we have to move over some of our students to Millington, where there is more classroom space available? Or is it better to take time, explore the preschool expansion grant, conduct a more robust and almost like a canvassing of the community to get a strong handle on what our preschool universe is? Who are those children who are awaiting entering school? What are the numbers of babies that have been born? What should be our long-term plan to service those? And then those individuals who are applying for the first time to our district with 4-year-olds may then have to find another preschool experience for their child before joining us in kindergarten. So that's a thumbnail overview of the benefits and challenges of exploring preschool expansion. There's some grant money available. It is a challenge. Should we be working to have some of these classrooms in our schools? But I'd really like to, I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can see everybody who's here participating, and just ask you to either call out any questions or comments or thoughts that you have, or to post them in the chat and we can respond to them.
You ready to walk it and get out? Do you want to walk it?
Anybody have any thoughts on the preschool? What is the anticipated total amount of 3- and 4-year-olds? Let me just flip over to that. So for pre-K 3, we have 14 that pre-registered. Per pre-K 4, we have 25. And then what would happen is that 25 would necessitate 2 sections of pre-K 4, unless if we took the students off the waiting list, or we could keep our numbers as they are and do kind of a thorough analysis of what is the cost benefit, because preschool is a tuition-based program, as many of you are aware. What is the benefit of that additional section? You have to hire an additional teacher, you have to make those spaces available. Is that something that's preferable for the district? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
If we open that section, would that require moving to Millington?
So it's a great question. As you can see, the numbers at Gillette are still manageable. And one of the things that we discussed today is also what's our priority. If our priority is keeping the pre-K here at Gillette, maybe there's some other things that we can do with scheduling to, open up an area that could be a faculty room to provide better opportunities for our specials teachers and our library by doing, different scheduling. If we go to that fourth section, to your point, Julie, and we add that additional revenue, additional class for educational purposes, it's going to be much tougher to fit everybody here at Gillette. So the likelihood would be that some of those, that if we have that section, it would trigger the move. Whereas we might be able to continue to accommodate here at Gillette with some additional adjustments. So it's a really good question. And it's kind of the heart of the matter of where we are.
Thank you.
What a great question. What's the experience starting and expanding preschool programs, and what's the long-term impact on students' academic achievement? So in my previous district, everyone kind of looked at our early childhood learners. They saw how they were performing. They were doing really well on state tests. And that's why many districts took a long time to move to full day kindergarten, because there was this focus of, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So one of the first things that I did was move to a full day kindergarten program. So I do have a good deal of experience of expanding a program from half to full day in kindergarten, and also bringing a preschool into district when we were only using community partners. So in my previous position, we did not have the robust preschool program that we have here in Long Hill, and we had to create it. So personally, I have experience with both of those things. And in terms of the long-term impact on students' academic achievement, as you can anticipate, reading levels are increased dramatically, and students' fluency and ease at developing as proficient readers increases. In addition, it's a wonderful way to explore greater social and emotional development for our youngest learners. So the benefits are strong academically and socially, but it doesn't mean that it has to be something that we, pick up and do right after a pandemic, for example. It might be something that, as a group, we want to explore for a year. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but of course we have the great fortune of having a couple of our preschool teachers here online with us tonight, and you are an important part as a stakeholder in this process and a preschool educator. So please don't hesitate to kind of jump up and share your impressions, share your thoughts. Thanks, Michelle. Sorry to do that to you. You're in the spotlight all day, and now I'm asking you again.
No worries. So obviously preschool is my love. I've been teaching preschool for 21 years and I wouldn't want to ever change a thing. Developing a new program, another classroom, I know does take a lot of time. And I think it's something that needs to be explored. When Harding Township opened up their preschool program, they didn't have a preschool. Ms. Yalberberg at the time had hired me to explore, purchase everything for the classroom. This is a brand new preschool program. What does a brand new preschool classroom need? And wow, was it a lot to start from scratch. So I thought it's, a great idea to think about. I definitely think preschool are the years where, we catch everything early on, whether it's, a child who's struggling, a child who just needs a little bit more. Those early years are so very important as far as early intervention, moving on to preschool. I like the idea of exploring it. I personally think exploring it for another year would be, in our best interest, just coming from my opinion, as you asked. But I definitely think it's a nice idea because you know what, we have so many parents who want to put their children in our preschool program. And I really feel we have such a strong preschool program We really do. We're starting to develop and use the creative curriculum and the assessment tool next year, which we're really excited for. And I just think it's a lot to take under. So I think exploring it would be something beneficial for us.
And having more data. And Michelle, what a great point. And thank you for sharing, because it was on my list. And,
Not fighting, or I will put you both to bed early. And you
great
will lose
benefits
another night of fighting your.
early detection of learning differences, and the research is very strong that when an early intervention program is in place and research-based with educational professionals, that the achievement gaps between peers lessen significantly when those students have that robust preschool experience and early intervention experience. So a great point. And thank you also for sharing with everyone kind of the history of Harding, how we got to the part where we are. And I guess part of what I heard with what you were saying was similar to the beginning of this presentation, which is we have an unmet need. So what do we do with it? We have some people in the community who would like to use our district for a preschool. And what is our responsibility? What should be our timeline to work on that? Another great question in the chat, which is how will the grant impact the tuition? Is it more of an initial program set up instead of tuition? So grant money can't be used for, say, constructing a new early childhood learning center, but it could offset tuition costs, salary for teachers. So it could lead directly to a reduced tuition for all families. And when they talk about the concept of universal pre-K, they've allocated a lot of money for it at the state level, but not enough to make sure that everything is fully funded. One of the benefits for working on this as soon as we can is that when you're first in line to get the money, whether you're doing a referendum project or preschool expansion, you're definitely more likely to get the funding and more likely to secure a larger amount. I've seen that with referendum that I have done in the past. I'm excited because our Director of Special Services, myself, and all of our preschool teachers will be going to the New Jersey Early Childhood Summit later this year in May. And one of the main topics is preschool expansion. And we're going to be able to learn from districts that were in the first pilot of the preschool expansion and get those really direct answers on, okay, the first step is what they call identifying your preschool universe. What tools did you use to determine what your preschool universe is? How many students are out there for potential for you in the future? And then secondly, what did your application look like? How much money did you get? And then what percentages are allocated, say, for supplies for the students and salaries for the teachers and so forth. Julie, you came on camera. Did you have a question or a comment?
I did have a comment. As an educator, I was thinking that implementing a new curriculum and on top of that, adding a new class sounds like a lot to take on in 1 year. Because I know that implementing the creative curriculum in the district where I work did take, it takes a while to get used to a new curriculum, how you use it. And that I feel like in a teacher's perspective that that might be a lot to take on in addition to adding a new classroom.
That's for certain. So just to clarify, we do use the creative curriculum already, and we're not looking to deviate from the creative curriculum, but there's always time to refresh and improve all of our curriculum. This isn't just about preschool. So for example, this year, we went to the Early Childhood Learning Center over in Berkeley Heights. They used the creative curriculum, and we were looking for some pieces like, okay, how do they work in this curriculum? What are some things that we could add here in Long Hill? What can we learn from their experience? So to clarify where we are as a district, our value would be to keep our pre-K, K, and 1 students all together here in Gillette School. We're going to do a cost analysis of the 4th section of preschool, which would be the waiting list that we currently have for our pre-K 4s. We'll continue to enlist the support and expertise of the teachers and the Educational Association here locally to make some determinations. And after we go through the process of the next, I would say, couple of weeks, we will be able to talk more about whether we're going to go forward with trying to create a section for those on the waiting list this year, or if we'll postpone it to next year. Christina, you have a question?
So, Dr. Mucci, I just wanted to speak to the point of looking into the education grants and expanding into the community. Having experience working in a child care center in the area, I think it's a very interesting option, which, you know, I implore the district to explore. But that being said, putting my own son in the district as versus in private childcare, there is a difference. There is in my opinion, a mass difference in the experience of the child, because in these childcare centers, while the grant does allow for dedicated space for, you know, children within the district to be in the center, it still lacks the ability in many centers in the area, just because we don't have full gymnasiums, we don't have music rooms, we don't have art rooms. And while I understand there is a mass problem with space in Gillette School per se, I think even the differentiation and instruction from learning from different people. I know in music and in gym, we see male teachers in early childhood education where we don't necessarily always see that in a varying childcare or daycare center, if you will, an early childhood care center like that. So I think the overall experience when you're talking about pre-K through a school district is varied and very different from that of moving a pre-K class into a childcare facility that's already up and running. So I think that's just something to consider. I know that I was a pretty big proponent of not moving the kids. I think it's a big transition, like I mentioned, to go from Gillette to Millington. But I think when you're talking about losing, you know, exposure to the book fair and assemblies and guest speaker, you know, there's something to be said for that elementary school feel, if you will. And I think for people who are looking for that, it's a very wonderful fit to have your children in a school that does all of those things versus in a center where they're still getting district-wide pre-K, but not having that full exposure. So I just, you know, from experience, I just wanted to put that on the table. Thank you.
And the experience is different by family. So for example, another thing that caused us to really stop and look carefully at this was when we looked at our aftercare program. We have 10 pre-K students who take advantage of aftercare. So if we were to move the pre-K students to Millington, do we really want to have 3, 4-year-olds in aftercare with the 5th grade students or the 4th grade students who are there? It's a big age difference. If we did that, would we bus them back? So for some families, depending on their work schedule and their child care needs, a community-based preschool is a better option because it allows their family to have the hours that they need, beyond if they need an earlier drop off. And a lot of some of the things that we've heard are that, families are paying $950 to use our preschool. And we probably had to do more quarantines and closures than maybe some childcare facilities because they have different guidelines or they have more staff or a different flexibility. I have a 3-year-old nephew and we're learning experience over on Route 25. And he's only through COVID really had to stay home a minimal amount of days because of the way that program was run. So those are important questions to consider as well. When should families, question in the chat, who are on the wait list expect to know the decision of the district? So if you registered for pre-K 3, you'll be hearing from Dr. Jones that all of those students will be able to accommodate. If your child is 4 years old and they were here for their 3-year-old preschool and they're wishing to continue, they too will be able to be accommodated without a problem. The group that we have on a wait list are first-time applicants for pre-K 4. And that's that additional section that we would need to create that we're talking about. And we anticipate, as Dr. Jones will be reaching out to people this week, letting them know where they are in the process. And then within, by the end of the month, so March 30th, April 1st, we'll have a decision on what we're going to do with that additional group of four-year-olds, if we'll be able to accommodate them and what that would look like. No problem. Thank you for the questions. Anything else on preschool, on the idea of the enrollment? If you'd like to read the full demographic study, it is available on our website. Okay, our next topic is related to our progress in goal area 1, which is the idea of learning from a felt need. We have made a strong and specific effort, much like it's great to transition from this in our preschool discussion, because everything in preschool is project-based, it's immersion, it's working together, and sometimes we lose some of those project-based learning activities and those hands-on kinesthetic learning as students get older. So this year we partnered with the Consortium for Gifted and Talented Students in New Jersey, and we've offered a number of standalone project-based learning activities. And our students at Gillette and Millington really kind of lit things up in this. They dug into these project-based learning initiatives, and we had first and second place winners in the first round of events. Again, this is open to all students. You can read about it in the Friday flyers. These are engineering challenges, design challenges. We have debate, and we also have a workshop on the arts coming up. So we're excited about those. We're instituting a youth entrepreneurship curriculum. It'll be mini lessons to assist students in developing a creative mindset for solving problems and working collaboratively with their peers. It will also be an after-school club for our 3rd and 4th graders in May, and in addition to our Summer Institute this summer. Just this week, the Board of Education approved our entrance into Sustainable Jersey, which is community-based project learning activities where students can learn how to improve the quality of the environment, whether it be instituting more recycling through cafeteria waste, looking at how much of we are reducing our carbon footprint, what energy saving efforts we can bring in as a district. And our plan is to have individuals from the township and the different municipal organizations come in and educate the children in our school system about everything from energy consumption and use to looking at disposal of trash, and what we can do to be a more sustainable organization as a public school. So we're very excited about that. We continue to support the development of the whole child. We have enhanced our social emotional learning lessons at every grade level. We have increased the number of counseling services that we have available by also adding 1 licensed clinical social worker to our counseling staff, and we contracted that through Sage Thrive. We are seeing some school refusal at the middle school. I think they were very hard hit by the pandemic and just a challenging time. You're trying to figure out who you are. You're defining things by your peer relationships. And when you're isolated from those relationships for so long, it can be hard to get back into the swing following the pandemic. We'll talk a little bit more about that later when we also focus on what is happening in our community. We're proud of our curricular revisions. We've completed the implementation of K-5 Big Ideas Math, and we've updated the health and physical education curriculum. We're in the process of revising the creative curriculum here at our preschool. We're analyzing different science. We have a total of 3 science curriculum that we've narrowed it down to that we're looking to adopt for K-5 science. And in an analysis of our student achievement data, both on the benchmark assessments and then in-house assessments, we've seen some areas where we need to shore up the instruction of writing, and we're working on developing those lessons as well. That's a great point. When a guest speaker comes in, will parents have access to the material that they are speaking on? So we don't have per se any guest speakers scheduled between now and the end of the year. But I will share with you in an upcoming slide what we're looking to do with the guest speaker database. And I can share that, yes, the content, the background that guest speakers share would be shared with faculty, with parents in advance. And whenever we have guest speakers come in, they always work collaboratively with the teacher to be aligned to the curriculum. So the discussion around learning is, what does experiential learning look like? You know, this meeting is an opportunity for us to also gain some insights as to what your experience is as a parent, what you're seeing at home in terms of how your children are learning, where you see them getting the most excited, what things are going especially well, and then what areas you would like to see more of. So I open up the floor for you to participate in that way by sharing some experiences, asking any questions, or you can pop them in the chat. I know that there's nothing teachers and administrators like to hear more than assignments that went really well or things that students were really excited about. So know that we appreciate that feedback. We want to know what the experience is like at home. If you are seeing the same translation of what we're trying to do with more project-based and interest-based learning projects in our schools. And we always appreciate feedback on those topics. The next area of our long-range plan is community connectedness and communication. So the community just opting in. We want individuals who may not be a part of our school community as parents to feel welcome and connected to what's happening in the schools, as the schools are the greatest resource of our community. We have so many individuals, you know, we're the largest in, I don't know, but we're one of the larger employers in the township. And we educate a large percentage of our population. So we want everybody, whether they have children or not, to feel connected to our schools. So we urge residents, they can do so by logging on to the homepage of our website to opt into our community e-blast list. It grows a little bit each week. We're up to 50 people who live in town and receive important emails, invitations to events like this so that they can feel more connected to the schools. We always are working on enhancing our partnerships. I mean, there's not anything that can be said about the PTO other than it's an unbelievable partnership powered by strong volunteers who bring so many educational programs, teacher appreciation programs to our schools. And we want to make sure that whatever we can do to support the PTO, we do. Force, which runs those after-school programs, is rebranding itself as the Long Hill Education Foundation, and they have a very exciting fundraising event coming up in the next few weeks. There'll be details out there on that. And I also would love to share that we're excited that the of Ed Foundation is funding a number of teacher grants, and we're looking forward to approving those soon. They have come up from a number of teachers, and they were very creative, wonderful grant applications. The Special Education Advisory Committee has been meeting a number of times over the course of the year, and they're approaching transitions as a topic of discussion at their next parent meeting. We started some new traditions with the town library, sharing their resources and programs with all of our email blast list here in the schools, taking our kindergartners there to get their first library card earlier in the year. We're thrilled to be having the recreation program back after again this summer. And it's really wonderful that after those years of shutdown, everybody is looking forward to working with recreation. We can't say enough about how we're on the same page. We communicate all the time. We recognize that we're all serving the same group of students together. I add the public works because I've never quite seen a public works department like this. You know, I know today may have been disruptive for some of you trying to get to school. Some of our buses were delayed because for the second time in 4 days, the crew that's working on Northfield Avenue, and that's not our public works, but an outside group, nicked the gas line again. But our DPW was there right away, clearing things, offering assistance, working with the police, making sure that we could get the students into school safely, despite the problems with these outside contractors that were doing some road work and repair. So that level of cooperation, of understanding, like, even though it's not our team, we know that they've caused a problem that's disrupting the day for the schools, and we're going to do everything we can to make that right. We couldn't be more thrilled and proud of that support that we receive from the hardworking individuals in the Public Works Department, and just the fact that they recognize how much support we need as schools, that we have limited staff. And it's just been a pleasure. So as disruptive as some of the little hiccups this morning for our Millington families would have been, I can tell you that in a lot of towns, if you don't have that level of cooperation, we probably wouldn't have even been able to get the students in school. It was wonderful. We're working with the regional high school, meeting with them regularly. Just this last week, we had learning walks at Central Middle School, and what that means is the department supervisors, so the world language supervisor, the science supervisor, the math supervisor, English supervisor from the high school came over on different days and toured our middle school classes, sat in on classroom lessons, and then after the lessons, they met with our middle school teachers and shared with them, well, this is going to be a wonderful connection for these things that the students need to have in place to be strong writers in high school. Here are some areas where we see some students struggling. Here's where we'd like to make a stronger connection. Many of these mechanisms were in place prior to my arrival. I don't want to make it seem like I'm taking credit for any of them. With the leadership from Mr. Vitarello and the strong support that we've received from our town organizations and the high school, I really feel like we hit our goal area 2 for being connected to the community out of the park. One of the things we had wanted to do was create welcoming our community into our schools and creating a guest speaker database. We started that in hopes that we would be able to do it this year, but with the dreaded COVID, it just was not practical. We're looking again to work on that over the summer. And what we would do is work through getting some information on people in the community who have expertise in certain areas and creating a database that people could not only contribute to, but then would be accessible to teachers to share out at appropriate times when we can connect those in our community with strong expertise. Maybe they are working as mechanical engineers and they can help our robotics team, or perhaps someone might be a collegiate professor of literature and they want to join when we're doing our workshop on the arts, or there may be someone who has some stage direction. One of the things when I first did this in my previous position was we started this guest speaker database, and little did I know until doing it that the individual who was in charge of costumes and design for the Metropolitan Opera was a resident in town. And then when we were working on costumes for the school musical, it was so great to be able to have that person just come in and share and talk about costume design and also offer our team some pointers. So we had hoped to do that this year. We'll send some information out about that and hope to begin it next year. We want to make it easier to attend school events by holding them virtually. We have a strategic communication plan. You might have noticed you received a communication from Ms. Dawson today. Just these little checkpoints saying, we had a school security drill today. We want you to know it happened. So if you're sitting there and you hear something at the dinner table, or you notice that your child might be asking you some questions about security plans in your own home, like where did this come from? So we're putting those communication pieces in place as well, so that there's never any mystery about what's happening here. This is especially challenging when the schools have been closed to visitors for so long, because that is a time when people start to feel sort of disconnected. We did conduct a website audit. We went through all of our links, making sure they were working. We've tried to vary the approaches that we use to get information out there, started to give more press releases to the echoes, so that maybe if your inbox is constantly full, but you're walking in the store and you see the cover of the echoes and you see some of our students on there, it does help you make that connection in case you missed an email. So what we'd like to know from you with regard to our second goal area is, what can we do to help you feel more connected to our schools? Where can you see some improvement in our communication styles? Can you give me an example of something that, oh my gosh, I missed this, that maybe we didn't publicize enough? It's the name of the game, being an effective communicator. So tips, pointers, feedbacks on how we can help the homeschool connection and what you would like to see from us. Hi.
I can't speak. Hi, I can't speak for the older grades, but I just wanted to say, I know in the pre-K programs, the accessibility to the teachers, seeing them in pick up and drop off, which I know like the older kids in the drop off lines and the buses maybe doesn't happen, but I'm thrilled with the level of communication that I received from my son's teacher. I think it goes above and beyond. I feel even not being allowed in the classroom for as long as it's been most of the year, I feel included. I feel like I understand what's going on. I see even so much as displays in the backgrounds of photos shared of our children and things like that, just so when they come home, we have talking points. So like I said, I can't speak to the upper grades, but I think that the pre-K teachers do a fabulous job.
Thanks for that. And that's so important to have those touchstones, because I mean, I'm a mother of 3 boys. I mean, they tell you nothing. And they're 23, 19, and 15. My youngest is finally one who'll share something that happens at school. But it's a lot better when you have some lines to throw out into the water to start conversation, so that you can get more than just the day was fine or a rundown. You know, if you want to know more than recess, it seems like the recess stories sometimes come to the surface, but not others. So feedback on how you can how we can work on that communication, other areas that you feel you'd like to know more about?
Some of the ideas that I have to do with if there are areas that in which maybe some brainstorming needs to be done. I know these are opportunities for that, but if it's a specific area, then maybe there could be like room for parents in the community on some sort of committee or special interest group in that sense.
Right, like a parent advisory committee.
Yes.
It's a great suggestion. If items strike you, in addition to the suggestion we have about establishing a parent advisory committee, something for brainstorming ideas, you can always feel free to email and send those to us as well. The third area that we're looking at in our long range ed plan is facilities and finance. So with regard to facilities management, we do need to look at our long range facilities plan and capital improvements. This is an area where I think as a district, we can do a lot better. We did resurface the parking lot in Central Middle School. We're planning to do Gillette School over spring break and Millington School in the summer. Also expanding that front entranceway and parking lot to the school to make the ease and flow of traffic better. So our long range facilities plan, capital improvements, I think that's some area where we, just like in our homes, we might put off some of those projects and we need to be more proactive than we have been. So that's a strong focus for us right now. One of the ways that we're looking to do that is consider carefully our in-district capacity for custodial and maintenance services, and also the possibility to enter into some more shared services agreements. So for example, the high school maintenance driver brings over lunch for our free and reduced students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch every day. It's a wonderful agreement. They bring them here to Gillette. We take it from there for the rest of the district. And it's been a strong relationship that we've been building with them to see, okay, how can we pool our resources? How can we work with the township? How can we work with the high school staff? All of this is our tax money going into our community. But what can we do to build upon the great relationships that exist to have a stronger capacity with individuals here in our district who have more maintenance background, so that some of the things that have been pushed to the bottom of the list or maybe never gotten completed in a timely fashion can start to get done. In terms of fiscal management, one thing that I have started to piece together from conversations at regional roundtables and just researching what's happened financially here in the district over the years is that we made significant budget cuts in 2011 and 2016 when state aid numbers were cut. And then again, I should have added 2018. When something is cut from a budget, it's incredibly difficult to come back from. And that's what we're trying to do. We have increased some of the positions that have been lost in basic skills instruction and special education, but we've also been working to try and expand the programs that we offer by phasing out pay to play. So next year it will be significantly reduced. And the following year, hopefully, so 1 year from now, we won't have pay to play at all. So we'll reduce it next year and then we're going to eliminate it. On top of that, pay to play is for all students. And a second thought would be serving students and families who are in need. You know, there is not just, we talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm so proud of our faculty group that have tackled this topic, because one of the things that they focused on is economic diversity within our district. What does that look like? How are the needs of families maybe different, and how can we support families that need us in maybe a more proactive way to make sure that no child is denied all of the educational experiences that they should have here in Long Hill. We have negotiated collective bargaining agreements with the Long Hill Education Association. We were so fortunate to have a wonderful and successful negotiation with the Teachers Association. And we have a 5-year contract. We're in the first year of it, which is wonderful for budget planning purposes because we know what the increases in terms of salary will be each year. The Administrators Association, which is the Long Hill Administrative, is in negotiation this year because they alternate. It's the teachers and then the administrators. We have a temporary memorandum of understanding. We're hopeful that within the coming weeks, that contract too will be settled, and that really helps us plan better for managing our finances in a predictable way. So public education funding formulas have always been a hot topic of discussion. This year, Long Hill received an additional $156,000 in state aid. And I got that information from our budget report. And then we also saw some individuals at the state level reaching out to us and saying, we worked hard for you in the District 21 legislative district to make sure that you received this additional funding. But to my earlier point, the state funding levels still aren't to the same place that they had been in the years prior to it being decimated a few times. And one of the answers that we've had at the state level from our legislators is perhaps we need to pursue and look more closely towards regionalization. So whether or not you may be aware, the high school is beginning application for a regionalization study. And the question is, there is a continuum. We can work to share more services and keep our pre-K 8 districts in the 4 areas contained, or moving all the way to exploring what would regionalization look like, what cost savings could that offer, and what would that bring to the community of taxpayers. So I just wanted to throw that topic out since it's probably one of the leading topics in terms of facilities and finance, and see what questions, comments, thoughts people might have on that. So these are items that the high school will continue to explore in terms of the regionalization study, and I'll be able to share with you in the coming months. And really, it's a process that takes years, how that's going to shape up and how it affects our district. And our final and probably for our 4th goal area, which is really just how do we feel about being here in terms of the culture and climate of our schools? What are we seeing our faculty and staff facing? How are our students feeling? So we do struggle with the concept that there is a extreme national and state level teaching shortage. When we look at our long range ed planning, that's something that we have to carefully consider. Fortunately, our staff is young and they're also invested in the district. When people come to Long Hill, they tend to stay to Long Hill. We heard Ms. Waco earlier talk about her 21-year career in education, and we're glad that she spent much of it with us here in Long Hill. So that's a great thing. For the next, for this year coming up, we don't have an anticipated high number of retirements, which we're thrilled about, and we don't anticipate the shortage affecting us in district. We do still attract a high quality applicant pool, and we have the only area where we have had difficulty filling vacancies have been in those shorter leave positions. If someone has to go out for a medical reason for a short term, or if there is a leave replacement, which is only a period of weeks, those are where we have seen some challenges. But other than that, we are in good shape, but we have to be proactive to think that our demographics and the complexion of what our teaching population looks like can change. So some of the things that we're doing is taking on student teachers, building out our substitute list, working to offer more training for paraprofessionals so that they can gain their teaching certification, partnering with colleges and universities to offer greater satisfaction for our members by increasing professional development opportunities, hopefully and proactively involving our faculty and staff whenever they have an area of concern or they're interested in participating and having their voice heard. Oftentimes, as I'm sure you've all read, people don't leave jobs solely because of salary. It's about a lack of appreciation or not feeling as though their voice is understood or that their work is valued and mattered. Everything that I have seen in Long Hill indicates that we do work hard to make sure that our faculty and staff know how much they are appreciated. And I think we just have to be cognizant of what the landscape is out there for educators and how we can continue to make sure that we have action plans in place to recruit and retain high quality educators here for our students. With regard to our students, part of what shapes their attitude about how they feel about school is helping them learn and feel comfortable and safe in expressing their emotions, sharing when they're scared. We have developed a number of proactive mental health programs that we use to serve our students. We've also built in some service learning opportunities because when you work to help someone else, you also develop a higher sense of self-esteem, of belonging, of connection to the community. And then the most important skill is, of course, empathy, understanding how others feel, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And I connect that to digital citizenship because one of the unfortunate consequences of the pandemic and students and being home longer, being on technology unchecked longer, has not only been some social isolation, but it's been a greater use of social media, a use of online platforms to interact with each other anonymously. And when the anonymous part kicks in, so does the bad behavior. One of the things that we feel strongly will support the culture and climate improvement and making sure everyone feels safe and valued is more and consistent training in digital citizenship and appropriate use of social media. So speaking about collaboration, Warren Public Schools was bringing in a guest speaker that one of their parent organizations raised funds for on creating greater digital citizenship efforts among their middle schoolers because they were experiencing many of the same things we've seen here in Long Hill. I read about the speaker actually in the Echoes. I'm like, this sounds great. I did reach out to Dr. Mingle there, and they were going to offer us an invitation, but actually, as the same as here in Long Hill, people realized how much it was needed and they sold out and didn't have any extra seats. So we're going to plan some of our own parent programming so that you can get keys for how to start conversations with your children about social media, how to carefully monitor what they're doing, how to recognize and understand warning signs of behavior that may be antisocial, may be creating some behavior problems at home or at school, and what you can do to work through those as a family. So, we all get to make some choices in our life. There is wonderful communities all through Morris County and through New Jersey. And the question to sort of close on as we think about planning and charting our future is, why did you choose Long Hill? What is it about our school district that you like? What are the things that you feel we need to keep on doing well? What creates a greater level of satisfaction for you with your school system? As I mentioned earlier, we always do want to hear that feedback. It's great to have some of our teachers here this evening. I also had a note to mention along the way that as we get more connected with our community and those partnerships, Ms. Pisciotti, our first grade teacher, came online tonight because she's so invested, as are all of our educators, in our students, and they have some wonderful plans for next year's first graders as communities open up more. So that we can get involved in more experiential learning and connecting our students to the Long Hill community with, some wonderful thoughts for field trips and just understanding the history of Long Hill. So we're so looking forward to that. Thank you. And we look forward to continuing these. One of the things that we're doing also is we know it's important for people to come in person. So as well as just having the flexibility to participate virtually. So I think for our final long range ed plan, the quarterly sessions, what we'll do is we'll probably host it here in district for people who want to come in person, but we'll do it hybrid. So we'll have parents who can just pop on and watch the meeting and also contribute to the conversation, even if though they might not physically be able to get there for the meeting. So that's something we plan to continue in the future. And I thank everybody for joining us. Never hesitate to reach out via email if you have any questions. I hope everybody has a pleasant weekend and an enjoyable start to spring. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much. Have a great night.